Hello everyone. Welcome to the next session of our new design webinar series. I am Shruti, working for Vogue Institute as assistant professor. Today we have with us Mr. Chetan. He is a Bangalore-based architect, and now my HOD, Mrs. Jaya Lakshmi, will introduce our speaker. Over to Jaya Lakshmi, ma'am.
Good afternoon all. Very happy to welcome you all for our webinar with Mr. Architect Chetan. Architect Chetan is a practicing architect and a mentor for the firm Calm Design with an experience of around 2 decades. He is a well-known architect all over the country, you can say. He is associated with many colleges and conducting many workshops about the calm design. It's a firm which believes in cost-effective architecture with eco-sensitive materials. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, madam. It's a pleasure to be here. Hope I'm audible and clear to everyone here. Madam, if you can give me a thumbs up, it's great. Okay, awesome.
Yes, sir. You are pretty much audible, sir.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we will be talking a little bit about our journey of what Calm Design is all about. Calm Design, which is my practice for the last 2 decades, and my journey, which is post that now, where I'm moving more towards design exploration, which I will share in brief with you people. So I intend to show some of my works with you, if that's all right. So that there's always great learning for us. Okay. I think I need some light here. Um, yeah. Can I share a slide for everyone to see?
Yeah, sir. You can.
Awesome. Great. I joined architecture in 1991 in a college in Bangalore University, which is Dayanand Sagar College of Architecture. Then it was Dayanand Sagar School of Engineering, so, College of Engineering. Now it became the Dayanand Sagar School of Architecture. It was a very interesting thing which happened. Okay, I'll tell you a small story for me to tell you. Start off. How did I get into architecture? I always wanted to be a doctor, and fortunately for me, I managed to sleep in my 12th standard chemistry examination, and that gave me a very little chance of getting into a medical school. And then the next, I didn't know anything about architecture, but I always wanted to be a doctor at that point of time. Lucky I didn't become one. Because then what happened is I said, let me start off doing my BSc in CBZ so that I can then, after that, I can join MBBS. Then I started CBZ, managed to cut a few insects and animals on my dissecting table for the first 2 months. And then suddenly my mother felt that I should join a professional course. And we went ahead and talked to one of my close relatives who was an architect. So he suggested architecture is a wonderful field to be in, and I would definitely work on it. And I was somewhere inclined towards the arts because I was always with theater. I was an Yakshagana dancer at that point of time, so and photography was some kind of passion. So he said it would be an interesting course for you. Why don't you join architecture? So then we started searching for a school of architecture. Unfortunately, there was only 2 at that point of time, which was UVC and BMS, and both the centers was full. So we went to Dayanand Sagar, and they said they plan to start architecture, but they don't know when. So he can join a civil engineering course, and then afterwards he can join an architectural course. So I went and did civil engineering for 6 months, and then finally they started the architecture school. and then I jumped into an architectural into the course, and then when I came out, I was the first architect out of that college. We were actually 11 classmates of mine, and during the last thesis period, I was one of the few people who gave the thesis and cleared through. So technically, I'm the first architect out of Danand Sagar College of Engineering. With that background, I think since I'm talking to a lot of students here, I would like to just tell you about my journey as a student and then go into my practice. As a student, I was introduced to this idea called the National Association of Students of Architecture, which was a conglomeration of students from across the country. Then there were approximately, I think, around 50 schools of architecture. Today, there's around 500 schools of architecture. So went into this lovely journey of exploring architecture through the student body. Because since I was in the first batch, there was always this challenge of, either the college was trying to understand what is an architectural course, because they suddenly realized it's not like an engineering course. You needed a lot more of creative personalities on board. There was no textbooks kind of thing. So there was a lot of exploration of an individual. So what happened for me was I went out of the college. I kind of really studied outside the college. I worked with a lot of students of architecture from across the globe. I worked on final year theses of my seniors. So actually, when I did my thesis, I already had finished almost 10 theses. I had supported 10 thesis projects before I took up my thesis project. And then there was this beautiful, grouping together of students where they could come and help the seniors or juniors on the coursework. So we went into that lovely journey, and in one such journey of one of the thesis projects which I was working on, which was on redevelopment of the Chhatrapati Shivaji railway station in Mumbai. I managed to do a complete 3D of, then we didn't have computers. So managed to do a complete 3D of the Chhatrapati Shivaji on the drawing board in 3 continuous days. Managed to just get out for nature calls, but food used to come to my table. That was how we worked. At that point of time, I kind of walked into one house. And this was like, it was designed by another architect in Bangalore. Just walked into this house and I saw this beautiful space, which I never knew could be built. Okay, they were, every rule we were taught in college was broken. We were taught a lot of things. Everything was broken. Everything of our knowledge of house was broken. Every knowledge of building construction was changed. And I said, wow, this is some kind of a very unique revelation for me. So I went into this person's office, his Jason, very senior architect of Bangalore, Jason Fountainhead, and went into his office along with another classmate of mine. And then we said, we looked at your work and we just fell in love with it. And I want to work for you, sir, and train under you. So we expected some kind of an earful, and then we expected him to give us a time for an appointment and do an interview, and then hire us, give us an appointment. If you are selected, give us an appointment. He immediately said, come work for me from tomorrow. It was like a dream come true. And I walked into his office the second day, and then he said, what can you work on? What are you good at? So then we were working a lot with models. So I said, I'd like to work on doing a physical model of a building which you've designed. So he said, great, awesome, come sit down. And then he took out a cover like this, simple cover like this, and then he took it out and sketched a few lines at the back of it. And he said, can you do a model of the sketch? I said, but I need measured drawings of it. I said, every drawing, every understanding of this building is going to be done on the model. There's no drawings which are going to be done in this model. So then this journey, and that building was not small. It was close to around, I think close to around 11.5 lakh square feet. It was for the Indian Institute of Consumer Studies. Huge project, huge. And with that one single cover sketch, we started off working on the design, on the model, and it took me 6 months to design that build space. And every time I do something, and in the evenings he used to come with his mug of beer and he used to get me a glass of buttermilk. Unfortunately, then I was never drinking beer. Uh, so he used to come with this buttermilk and beer, and then we used to sit down and discuss on that model for the next 2-3 hours, up to late nights, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the nights. And then one amazing bonding which have built between us, which still continues. I continue to work with him as an associate. He still calls me up, and we still do some projects together. I did um, the Center for Film Actors Association of Karnataka with him. So it's been an amazing journey at that point of time. So he made me question everything which was the rules. He made me question every knowledge I'd gained in college. He asked me to throw it in the dustbin and relook at it. So we should always understand what is taught to us in school is some kind of a base, some kind of a knowledge ground from where you can start slowly disseminating and slowly changing. And one philosophy of my personal life has been that understanding my own personal boundaries and consciously stepping out. So if you look at the projects which I'll be showcasing with you, you'll see that slowly every boundary is being slowly changed, questioned, moved beyond at every level. So with that, I will start with my presentation. I'll also talk to you about a little bit about CUM design. CUM was a word which came to me when I was in my third year of college. I was reading something in the library, and it was a documentation of a particular exhibition which was done in the School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi way back in '83, almost 10 years before I was reading this book. And there they introduced me to this word called CUM. And CUM in Sanskrit was a primordial word. It's a primordial sound. It was not a word, it was a sound which was as powerful in meaning as Om, right? So it meant the concepts of space. And since we deal with this idea of concepts of space, and we deal with this theater of space, I said, why don't we call my next journey as CUM design. So that's where it started off in 1998. I established CUM design with an idea to explore architectural theory and design and provide multifaceted designs and solutions. So we have been exploring design in various formats, in the format of building, in the format of interiors, in the format of products, in the format of theater, music, photography in various forms. So we kind of look at space creation as a theatrical act where you play around with various characters. What's theater? Theater is a play of actors, is a play of light, is a play of costumes, is a play of storytelling and everything. So what is architecture? What is design? It's again a play of materials, it's a play of geometries, it's a play of structure, it's a play of, again, light, color. It's exactly like theater, right? So if you start playing around and understanding this whole idea of theater and space creation, then you're creating something very interesting. All of you are students of design, architecture, interiors, and animation and various things I see here. So if you really look at this beautiful idea of space creation through materials, don't look at the material only as a tool for you to just put them into a genre and come out with something interesting. Look at it as space creation. Look at it as a theatrical act. Then architecture or design becomes very, very interesting. As we moved a little further, I think our vision really brought in this idea of the ecological and sustainable practice in our designs, because we suddenly felt that we were creating too much of waste, and the world is moving towards a challenging situation in terms of waste management. So we in CUM design, we conceptual spaces, we create architecture, interiors, product design using this theater of space and using the essence of ecology and sustainable practice. I always say that we are not, I don't call ourselves an environmental friendly architect, but we're definitely conscious, because the moment you start building something, then and you're taking elements from nature, then you're kind of making that destruction into the system. So that we are eco-sensitive, we are environmental sensitive architects. As I was sharing with you earlier, Kam design from Sanskrit means to dwell, or the idea of space. It is mentioned in various Vedas, it's mentioned in various scriptures. I'm personally not a very religious person, but this whole idea of Kam is beautiful. For me to help you understand Kam a little bit, if you can understand the words Sukham and Dukkham. Sukham and Dukkham are spaces of emotions, of being happy and of being sad. Right? It's in that space that which you can't define, and that is where Kam evolves from. So these are the various meanings of Kam. And with that, let me start off with a few of my projects. This is a very interesting project we did in near Bannerghatta Road in Bangalore, and it's called Prasanna Nair and Prem Kumar's residence. Prem always says that don't put my name, put only Prasanna's name, because it's been her soul on doing this lovely house. So that's why we always call this the Prasanna Nair house. We did it in 2014, and it was on a 60/40 site in a private layout in a place called Harappanhalli in Bangalore. And here we had this opportunity. We said, let's work with a lot of local crafts and local experimentation with not just our structural system, but also in terms of our finishes for interiors and things like that. So you'll see what kind of drama it evolves into. The floor plan is simple. There's a basement which we dug out, and the basement literally had the music hall and the entertaining space with garden areas on two courts inside the house. And there was a support staff's bedroom and a bathroom here, which was accessed from outside also. At the ground level, you enter into the entrance here, and then you come into this lobby area. And you can go down to the basement here, and then you can climb up one flight of steps into the living room area. This is the living room area, the kitchen, and the dining area, and the bedroom with an attached bathroom. Then you could climb up to the next floor, which would enter into the son's bedroom, which has an attached bathroom. The son's bedroom has a mezzanine floor for him to study. So here you could, from here, this layer, you can go up to another floor which had the study and the balcony and a bedroom with a bathroom. And this in turn looked down into the three spaces, the living room and the basement garden area. If there are any queries, please do prompt me so that I can answer those queries. I would request somebody to really coordinate that and put it across and so that I can explain those ideas to the participants. Okay. Now, yeah, this is what literally happened. I think the same thing as what we showed in the plan. This is the facade. I never believe in designing a facade. I never believe in designing an elevation. The elevation becomes a part of what happens on the inside. It is never a part of what happens on the outside. Because I don't believe in doing something for somebody walking on the road for 5 minutes and then just looking at it and not even being respectful for that space. So this is something which evolves because of what happens on the inside, right? This is the basement floor. If you really look at the kind of spaces we've created, there a lot of green space. We work with a lot of landscape. We work with a lot of natural light. All the pictures you see, I think most of the photographs you see are with natural light. There's no artificial light in any places. Most of the photographs you'll see from on all our projects are naturally lit photographs. So we try and see that every spot in the house is taken care of in terms of lighting. The roof, what you see here as red circles are filler slabs. If any of you want to know more about it, do put it in the pinned board in the chat box, and we will try and answer that later. The flooring again is an oxide floor. Instead of red oxide, we use the black oxide. We got a beautiful artist from Kerala to come and do this floor. This is black and yellow oxide mix. So you can create some beautiful drama with that. That's where as I told you, you create theater with a material. You have oxide and you start creating theater with it. You start making it make dance for you. Right? This is the living room space. This is the living room where every material here, say for example, the railing is done in bamboo. The furniture are all done in rubber wood, which is a byproduct of rubber industry. You look down to the basement garden space there. We got a Gond artist to come and paint that wall. We got that Gond artist to come from Madhya Pradesh to do this artwork. We said let's employ artists so that their art is also sustained. So this is one such space which we designed. This is the central court from the basement floor area itself, which looks up. This is the music hall. This is the dining area, and that's the study area. There's one bedroom here, and there's another bedroom out here. And this is again the basement part looking into that courtyard. This is the son's bedroom. He was a very interesting fellow. He is very interested in art, painting, sketching. He now wants to join design. He's now finished. He's taken a gap year, trying to study design as a career choice. So he has taken a gap year to explore various things. He's working with us on one aspect of one craft we are exploring together. So here, what he wanted is there was a lovely tree on the outside. He said, "Uncle, can you allow me to see the tree continuously? And at the same time, I would want to have my privacy." So he said, "Let's not build a wall here, but let's build a series of fins." And we said, let's build this fins with clay blocks. So if you really looked at the clay blocks, they all became fin walls. And the structural system was very, very interesting for us, because then you had to you can't just load the structure on this wall, but you have to kind of create a mesh kind of a thing. So we looked at how a spider's web literally breaks that whole loading on itself and converted that into a structural system here. And that became a study area. So these fins had glass in between. Between the clay blocks, there's a fixed glass here, which was mirrored from outside. So from inside, you could see the tree, but from outside it was a mirror. So you couldn't see from outside, you couldn't see the inside of the building. So all you could see from outside was a reflection of the tree, but from inside you could see that tree. Some more images of that place. So if you read even this again natural lit. These are all glass blocks, and that's the skylight, which just becomes a funnel and then throws in light onto the bed. So what you see on the bed as a circular light is natural light. So that's the journey which we went into this space. Again, the bathrooms were done out of, a finish called the Pavarati finish, which didn't have to have any tiles. So it was done using oxide finish, which became waterproof, and you could do some amazing things. The flooring on this dining area or the living room was all yellow oxide floor. So, and we used bamboo. We got a bamboo artist to come and do this whole bamboo installations for us. This is another house which we did in Bangalore, a very, very, very tight house, which was a 30 by 36 feet house with the rear becoming around 22 feet or something like that. So they had to have the 3-bedroom house. It was for a professor. He's a professor of physics, and we are presently working together, myself and Professor Raghavendra, on setting up one of India's biggest science centers in, I would rather say in Asia, because it's close to around 220 acres of land where ISRO is, agreed to give that PSLV launch 1:1 rocket for display. DRDO is giving the retired armed vehicles for display. So we're doing a lot of very interesting work with Mr. Raghavendra under the aegis of the Karnataka government, and we're working with IISc on that right now. So I'm building the project report along with sir. So this was for his house. It was a 3-bedroom house, and this is actually what you see on the facade was the what you see on the facade is actually the library. Each of these squares is a book rack at the backside. Okay, and because he's a professor, I mean, he reads a lot. He needs space for him to keep his books. So we created niches for him to keep all his books. And we said, just like the way we fold the corner of a book when we are reading so that we use that as a bookmark, why don't we create a nice palette of the bookmark on the facade? And we started working with ferrocement, which was one of the first experiments with ferrocement in this project, and did this amazing, I would say, fabric of cement, exploring grays and whites and blacks to talk about the library. So if you otherwise, if you look at it, the building has nothing in terms of a facade. And you've all been taught in school that whenever you're laying a brick, there should never be a vertical joint. But, we questioned that and said, why can't it be? If I can really visually build that vertical joint and then handle it structurally so that the load bearing happens differently, can I make a vertical joint? So we started exploring that from a long time in terms of projects from our project, because this block which I use is actually what we call as a Hurdy block. It is made up of, it is clay, but it has around 6 holes on the inside. So it's a beautiful insulating material, and it uses 1/6 lesser topsoil than your regular brick making. India on an average consumes 7,500 hectares of land of topsoil every year for just manufacturing bricks. And we are trying to make in our own small impact and trying to bring in that change. This is part of the insides, again, Atanguri tiles, which is a craft. The central living room space, which goes, becomes a triple height space, becomes a skylight, becomes a beautiful, and in the afternoons, mornings, and all the light pattern keeps moving throughout the house continuously. And the main door was made up of broken pieces of wood and made into a nice mosaic to understand new geometries. This is another house which we did in a place called Ilkal. It was for a granite quarry owner called Niaz Ahmed. Granite quarry owners, are very rich now. But we said, let me use all the waste material in your granite to build your house. So he was kind of flabbergasted. So we ended up building this whole house with only the waste which was there in this factory. And this is in a place called Ilkal. Temperatures here go up to almost 43, 44, 45 degrees in summer. But we kind of really addressed all the climatic influences, readdressed what is wind flow, readdressed the way materials play, how do we keep this building cool. And we had some students from the London University coming and studying, putting temperatures for almost 15 days in summer in around 10 spots inside the house, and we got an average saving of around 15 degrees lesser from the outside to the inside without the use of any artificial ventilation. No fans, no ACs, nothing. We managed to bring it down by 15 degrees. How we introduced a lot of courtyards in the house, which became the cooling spaces. The windows were all opening into the courtyards. If there was a window here, there was this courtyard which it opened into. If there was a window here, there was a courtyard which opened into. So it was an open plan which allowed movement of air to happen. And the windows were all made up of jali blocks. Jali blocks are basically openings which are very small in nature. We used this idea of Venturi effect. I'll give you a simple example of how to study Venturi effect. If you can keep your hand in front of your mouth, I would suggest that all of you do this. If you keep your hand in front of your mouth, open your mouth and blow out, you get hot air. But if you keep your hand in front of the mouth and say, minimize the opening in your mouth and blow, you get cold air. So the same quantity of air which moves from one side to another side, if the openings are smaller, the air gets cooler. So we use that simple concept, allowed water, air to come in, collect water vapors from here and blow through, becomes cool, enters into a courtyard and then enters this building. And this was a triple height space. There was this wind catcher here, which kind of took out all the hot air and threw out. I mean, you will see this in this. This is that square box. It took out all the hot air and then threw out on the top, right, on the sides and all those things. And even the water tank had to have the same jolly effect. So you kind of look at your own houses in Bangalore or any of the hot dry place. I mean, any places like this. In summer, your water tank gets hot. So just imagine what had happened in a place like Gilkal. So we kind of use the same concept of jollies all around the water tank to keep it cool. This is the upper floor, which had a family room and 2 bedrooms and the toilet and 2 courtyards. So all the stone you see, all that, most of the material was from the debris which we got from his land, from his quarry. There's another place in South Bangalore called NR Colony. Another very, very good friend of mine, Kannan Sarangpani, and now they've got a wonderful cafe at the ground floor of this place called Eat Repeat. If you are foodies and would like to enjoy puliyogre and sakar pongal and ambode, traditional food, do visit that place. They serve some yummy, out of the world sakar pongals, right? So we were doing this project, and then we started questioning with this client. This client was willing to experiment with us. Jayalakshmi madam or Shilpa madam, if I'm crossing my time, please do let me know so I can speed it up.
Sure, sir.
Right. So here we were talking to this client, and then we said, can we explore steel construction? Because we said steel is at least one material which does not end up into a landfill. At least it gets recycled and gets into another process for the longevity of the building. I will speak to you a little bit later about what we call as a cradle to cradle and cradle to grave movement. And we were trying to see whether we can get into this cradle to cradle concept, which is more environmental friendly. So this was basically the brief. Ground floor was supposed to be a dance studio, and the first floor was supposed to be a 2-bedroom house for his parents, and the second and third floor was supposed to be a 3-bedroom duplex for themselves and a terrace for them to have their terrace garden, and the solar panels. The ground floor got converted into what do you call the cafe now. The dance studio is not happening there. And we all said, don't change it to a dance studio again because we want that puliyogre back. So the remaining brief continues. We said, let the whole structure be done in steel. So I can unbolt this whole structure and then use it. So this is how we built that structure. It was a complete steel structure. And then we put the slabs and worked on it. What you see in the front, which is basically something like a ribbon, no? That was done out of waste material of the site. It was done at the last. And whatever material we got remained at the site, we used that to build that space. And this is the puja room. And we said, if the puja room is to be there, why should it sit on ground? God, if you believe in this idea of God, let God elevate. Levitate, right? So what we did was we kind of suspended this. We didn't, if you look at this space, it is not standing on a column. So if you look at this, there's a beam which goes in like that, then it becomes a column, and then it gets tied up from the top. So these two slabs are literally suspending from the top floor, and then it floats in the building, and it is not literally being supported from the bottom. It was a very interesting experiment. So when any other client would have backed out and said, no way, I want I want something which has already been done. But when I spoke about this with Kannan, he said, wow, let's go ahead and do something like this. Let it be unique. And then we came on with this beautiful mesh and lath plaster work, which we got. And I'll show you the inside pictures of this. And this whole thing is completely natural lit. Beautiful play of light happens on the inside. This is the Duplay house on the top, which has the living room area and the top bridge and their bedrooms on top. That's the bridge connecting on the upper floor. Yeah, this is you. Every spot of light here you see is natural, except for this one white strip. And all this are all not spotlights. This is the waste PVC pipe which was left out from the plumbing lines. We kept it there, put a glass on top. This is the pots, flower pots which were kept on the side. We just put it inside the concrete and cut the base and put glass on top. So this whole drama of light, what we called as theater of space, right? This theater of space creation. We got this because of the play of light. So some more images of that house. I'll allow you to be on the screen for a few seconds so that you imbibe the elements in the space. Look at the way geometries of light happens. Can light become your actor in this theater of space? Can light play shadows? Right? Can it create art? So when we're doing the steel structure, we said some of the roofs, let's do it with brick. So we said, let's start placing brick like a curve, like an arch. No? Your vaulted structure, this is a vault. But we said, let's do a dry masonry vault, which means that there's going to be no more cement between the clay bricks. So we just kept the bricks strongly and then released the centering. So it's slightly sunk by a quarter of an inch and locked itself. So even you can move an elephant on top of it, nothing will happen. So this is how the roof also happened for that house. This is the construction systems which we followed there. No? Just showing you how we used all the waste steel and the clay blocks, those PVC pipes and the things. This is the floor plans of that building. I don't believe in adding too many walls. That's why you see this unique geometries. Walls are very minimal in nature. I will introduce you to this idea which I'm now getting into, which is called the Hampi Center of Design. And then I'll take you on to one more project. Hampi Center of Design is a center which is going to be in the next part of my life, which I'm working on right now. We've set up a Center for Design Dialogue, which is open for all designers to come and participate, dialogue, interact. We've already done a lot of workshops. We've done a workshop on this idea of tensile architecture. How do you find form using nature? So we have this nature-inspired design thinking workshop, which we have now started online, which is there every week. So if any of you are interested, I had already sent across with Madam the link for this workshop. So we are looking at how nature helps us, because if you look at nature, even Earth's evolution, I'm not talking about nature as the universe, but only our planet Earth. Earth, for it to have evolved, it has taken close to around 4.5 billion years. 4.5 billion years of existence, of evolution. Whereas we as human beings, we have a known history of around 50,000 years, which is hardly a blink in Earth's evolution. If I can just ask you to close your eyes for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. This is the amount of time human beings have been on planet Earth from the time planet Earth has been existing in a 12-hour clock. If you say that Earth started off 12 hours ago and today is 0 hours, no, 12 hours, we are hardly here for 3 seconds. So look at the amount of evolution nature has gone into. So we said, if nature has done so much of work and we're trying to solve, I'm sure nature would have addressed all the problems we are facing. It could be in the form of a economy, it could be in the form of management, it could be in the form of form finding, the safest form finding, structural systems, quality of space, everything nature has already addressed and found solutions. So why don't we delve into that inquiry? So with that in mind, we started doing this workshop. I think our first workshop was way back in 2008 or so, if I'm right. So from the last 12 years, we've been doing this with a lot of students and doing some very, very interesting explorations using nature-inspired design thinking. Now we have started even exploring it to finance managers. We've done a workshop with mixture of product designers, architects, interior designers, fashion designers, finance managers, chartered accountants, chemical engineer, various things. And it's been an amazing journey out there in that workshop. So if any one of you are interested, in the last slide, you will get my contact details. Do send me a message or you can contact the election madam and she will be able to send you the link. So the vision for the Hampi Center of Design is it's a center that facilitates grassroots level design thinking and makes design education accessible to all. In order to create an empathetic, sensitive, and conscientious design community. Each word in this vision statement was discussed, dialogued with a corpus of architects and designers and thinkers and anthropologists to come out with what we want to do. How do we make people more conscious? How do we make people more design sensitive? And can we just do something for the fancy of it? Can we do something with some reason inside it? That's the reason why we set up the Hampi Center of Design. We're working on 5 major verticals of design exploration. They are design education, design conversation, design documentation, design outreach, and design interaction. I've already spoken to Madam about doing some kind of a workshop where we are tying up with various colleges to come to Hampi and do a particular study of a particular activity in Hampi for a longer time. So we will help you. We'll help curate that whole workshop, and there's a lot of learning when you do things in a place like Hampi. Hampi rocks are one of the first rocks which got cooled during the cooling period of the Earth. The Earth, when it was formed, was a huge ball of volcanoes. And when the first Earths which cooled in almost close to around 50 million or 60 million years after the formation of the Earth, those are the rocks you find in Hampi. And what more than looking at that there? So this is our online workshop which we're doing. It's for 2 hours every day. We do between 2 to 3 hours every day on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're also discussing Saturday, Sunday if some groups want it. So we have 2 batches right now, which is on June 13th, 14th, 15th, and June 20th, 21st, 22nd. And the costing is kept at a minimum of 1,500 per students, and we don't take more than 30 students for each workshop. So if anyone's interested, do let me know. So I'll get on to one of my last projects for the day, and this was a house for Shashidhar in Bangalore.
Sir, yeah. Sir, actually, some participant had asked some questions. Can you please help them to solve their queries?
Sure.
Okay. You can check in, sir, QA.
I did. I'm just answering. Okay. Why cannot wall be natural green? Definitely. Definitely it can be natural green. I mean, let me just tell you about one idea of sustainability, right? Or this idea of cradle to cradle. I am happy that you raised this question. The cradle to cradle concept is something which nature follows. What do you mean by cradle? Cradle is somewhere where something is born, right? And what we end up doing in most of our consumption of material is we send it to a landfill, which means it's a grave. So the kind of work which we do is basically cradle to grave, which sends everything into a landfill. So the exploration right now has been about cradle to cradle, which is about looking at how a material can become, after its usage, becomes food for another process, another cycle. All right. The more number of cycles we manage to do, the more environmentally conscious we end up. But if I can create a space which can kill itself, say if I can create a building which can kill itself after its life and then becomes food for another organism or a process, then I've achieved beautiful cradle to cradle. But technology at the moment is still not so strong for us to understand materials of that level. We're still in the very nascent stage of our growth. Um, so if I can, there are experiments of building with fungi, right? So they create a mesh and allow fungi to grow, and thereby that fungi literally covers up the whole mesh and becomes an enclosure. Um, but acceptance of something like that is still very nascent in even for us. No? For us to accept living inside something which is breathing and living is kind of still worried. And I think we still a long way to go into making walls natural green. In fact, what you saw in a lot of our projects, we use walls and in as vertical green walls in a lot of our projects. So it's fine. I didn't get the next question. Why created art forms? I didn't get that question, right? Because, okay, what is art? Let's understand what is art. Art is an expression of a particular society, right? Art is something which slowly evolves as storytelling for a community. What is language? Why should we speak in a particular language? What is mother tongues for us, right? If I don't know, because I'm speaking in English because a lot of us here, that's a universal language today. But if I'm speaking with my Masons, I would be speaking in Kannada, right? So why do we have that language? Language is a medium of communication of what that society wants. Similar is art, right? Every art form is basically an expression of what that community wants to speak out to, right? So in case of the Gond art, which we did in from Madhya Pradesh. Goan is a beautiful art which is done out of natural colors, and it tells a lovely story of that place. It tells a lovely story of the parrot and the leaves and the flowers of the leaves. So why not add that into our space? Why can't we make that into a part of the storytelling? As I told you earlier, architecture is nothing but theater making. So theater of space. So why can't we make art also moves? The moment I create patterns or jalis or anything like that, and that light starts moving, and it moves throughout the day because sun is not constant. The sun sets in the east, rises in the east and sets in the west, and it moves on the southern direction, right? Because we are in the northern hemisphere, we are above the equator. So whenever it moves, it starts casting this beautiful shadow pattern throughout the day, and light becomes a character for us to play. So yes, but in the night we do have artificial lighting. What are the factors to keep in mind while designing beach houses, architecture, and interiors? I think first and foremost, you need to understand what is a concept. What is a concept for a particular space, and then from there you need to start working. So it's your as a designer, it's your canvas. So there's no fixed factors to keep in mind while designing something. But yeah, there are, when you are looking at context, a context would change from designing on a cliff on the cliff of a mountain to designing on a flat land to designing on a beach. Definitely, there are certain standards which says that you can't design around, I think, 200 meters from the seashore edge. You can't design anything. So various things. Please to understand that it has salty breeze. Address that salty breeze and things like that. Okay. Divya, again, any problem if you use green? I didn't understand that. There's no problems in using green. What waste material used in the birthing? As I told you, we used a lot of broken meshes. We used broken pots. We used old PVC pipes which were left as waste from the plumbing lines as our building material for that place. How about the foundation when steel is used for the entire building? Foundation can be addressed. Foundation, I mean, it depends. I don't know if I have that presentation here. If not, I'll try and get you that. I'll showcase that. It's a school which we designed, and it's a beautiful thing. I will explain about the foundation when we go there. Okay. I hope most of the queries here are answered. I'll come back to this. This is a house we had designed for Professor Shashidhar. Again, this is what we call as a funicular shell. A funicular shell is a segmental dome where we played around with use of very less steel to build it, and structurally very stable. So we question everything. As I said in the first thing, question every notion of what you're being told. Question it before accepting it. And if you think you can make a difference by making a change in that thing which you've been told, do that. It'll definitely matter. Somehow just, I mean, this is in Bangalore again. This is near the Bangalore University. This is my contact details, but I think I'll show you that school because that school is a very, very interesting project and you should see it. If anybody wants to contact me, this is my contact details. I'll just share that out. Is it okay if I can share another 5, 6 slides, madam? 5 minutes more?
Yes, sir, no problem. You can share.
Just give me 2 minutes. I'll just. I thought it was there in this.
So there is a few more queries you can address those.
Yeah, I'm just
yeah.
also trying to get that presentation so I can.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm not able to find it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not able to find that presentation. But anyways, I will just answer the remaining questions. What are a few sustainable fabrics that can be used for furniture such as sofa, etc.? Fabrics as such is, you'll have to just see that the way that fabric is made is sustainable. Fabric is something which is very sustainable because after its usage, if you put it into a landfill, it actually degenerates, right? So please, you just have to look at the process of manufacturing that fabrics. There are a lot of fabrics which does not use any chemical dyes. look, one of the biggest contributors to pollution of the water system is the dyes in the fabric. So try and use something which has very little of artificial dyes, which has a lot more of natural dyes. There are firms which support natural dyes, so you can get your fabrics from them. I mean, and don't get too stuck up with materials again. Say, for example, in a few of our spaces, we have used saris from Ilkal or saris from Kanchivaram as our door finishes. We said, why should I put a laminate? Can I do a sari instead? So it became a beautiful expression. Santosh, I think you have a very important and a very important question, which is sustainable materials economical these days? Is life economical, Santosh? I think we have to really question this, right? Please do study a word, a topic. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Google. Please do check out Earth Overshoot Day. I repeat, Earth Overshoot Day. We are already living a life where we are kind of consuming resources from Earth like 1.44 times of Earth. If everybody wants to live like an American today, we need 7 Earths as it is today. If everybody wants to live like an Indian, we need close to around 1.8 Earths. We don't have 1.8 Earths. We don't have 7 Earths. We just have one single Earth. And if we don't move into sustainability as a thought process, we are going to literally push ourselves into extinction, and we're not too far from doing so. So definitely, that's a viable question. And until and unless we keep economics as a core value system for our living, then I would even say sustainability would be expensive. It would be expensive because if you're not sustainable, we'll lead ourselves to doom. But if you really ask me, if you have the right process, I mean, none of our projects are expensive projects. None of our projects we have built for auto rickshaw drivers, we have built for professors, we have built for artists. The house which I showed you for Prasanna Nair was built at a cost of 80 lakhs, including the interiors, everything we finished within 80 lakhs, right? So it definitely is affordable. When you look at per square feet cost, it's very economical. But I think the important thing is to remove that notion of sustainability as a have to or brand value or something like that. But if you become sustainable, I think it's safer for the planet. Which is best, a wall or a glass following sustainability? As I told you, no material is good, no material is bad. Even plastic is an amazing material for us to work with. It is just that how do you work with it so that it becomes a cradle to cradle model, right? If you really ask me, the worst material which we can find is a brick. Because once you burn brick, once you solidify clay and burn brick in a kiln, right, you are creating something which will never degenerate in its life. At least plastic has a degeneration life of 1,000 years. But if you build something with bricks, you don't even have a degenerative life. Glass again is something which is from silica, which is sand. But yeah, it does have a lot of inherent energy embodied in it, which is it goes into manufacturing unit. So please do look at it. Please do choose what is right at that point in that place. Say, for example, why we're using the Hurdy blocks is because one thing is definitely it reduces my consumption of topsoil. The other one is definitely that it kind of brings in that stability value which people look for. So you can't, I mean, if I have to become sustainable, I have to become a hermit. I can't eat, I can't breathe, I can't sleep, I can't breathe, right? So you need to be a conscious architect, and that's a conscious designer. That's where you choose what is right for that particular place. in terms of sustainability. Another very important rule of sustainability is the distance between production and consumption should be minimum. That's one of the rules of nature. It works within the local expertise. So please look at that when you're looking at sustainability. You don't have to go for any material which is there in the market. For me, for example, as I told you, we used old PVC pipes to create skylights. We've used baskets as filler slabs. We've used coconut shells. We've used keyboard trays as a building material. So it can all be nice, but it again becomes you as a designer of how you can recreate and make it much more interesting, right? So, right. Amira Samalam, what design-related ideas would you suggest to the students seeing the current COVID scenario and for the upcoming days also? I think COVID is an amazing, is actually a fascinating thing which happened to humankind. I'm speaking completely against what you've all been hearing, right? COVID is supposed to have brought our country back a few years or whatever. But I think it's an amazing thing because we have learned to become slow. We have learned that we don't have to consume every time. We have learned that my pizzas need not come from Pizza Hut, but can be done inside your own houses. We have learned so many things, which is so very, very important for day-to-day life, right? So I think my ask would be definitely please slow down a little bit so you can understand life better, and then based on which you can sorry, I was also trying to search for that school building where we have trying to see different structural systems, right? But anyways, I think coming back to your question, learn to slow down and yeah, definitely hygiene has become a priority today. Understand that hygiene. And something for the students is please break every rule you've been taught. I'll be banished from this webinar by Jayalakshmi Madam for saying this, but I think please question and banish one by one consciously, because what is being taught to you is the basics, but what you need to explore as a designer is to break those notions. If somebody tells you false ceiling, why false ceiling? Question it. Go beyond. Why false ceiling? What do you mean by a false ceiling? Right? When we have been told to tell the truth, why do you want me to tell a false? So question it. I mean, some people definitely require languages. So, for example, I'm not saying false ceiling is bad. We've used false ceiling. We've used false ceiling using baskets. We've used false ceiling using umbrellas. We've used false ceiling using fabric, right? But we have never tried to use false ceiling using gypsum or things like that, because somewhere we're not comfortable with using that yet. But I don't know. Gypsum might give me an answer in the coming days in terms of saying how it will work better. Look, again, sustainability, I'm not talking about sustainability for the earth, sustainability of the humankind, because earth will continue to live. Earth has already found a bacteria which can eat plastic, right? So it'll slowly, plastic will come over. Okay, Murali Krishna says, please organize this answer for my question. I didn't know whether it was not there in the Q&A, sir. Let me just check if there's anything in the question in the chat box. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay. Yesterday I attended the workshop, but I didn't fill up the. Okay, Murali, that's a question for the organizers. Okay, I think, Murali sir, I think the query was to the organizers about the feedback form. Anyways, thank you. If there's any queries, it's open up. If Madam, can I request if the participants can be allowed to put on their videos so that we could listen to them asking questions. And request you definitely, I think, request people to participate in the workshop which we're doing on nature-inspired design thinking. It's a life-changing workshop, especially for designers. It'll help you understand a methodology of working on how do you question nature, and how, I mean, you can't just question nature for something. There has to be a process in the way you do it, and then that process can help you break a lot of rules which you have done for yourself. So do join us for that workshop. It's a very powerful workshop which we're doing. It's evolved for the last 12 years, and we've kind of fine-tuned it to a beautiful session. Thank you all for your wonderful words and appreciation of our work. Thank you. Yes, madam. I'm kind of done. So if there's any questions, I'm willing to answer. I will just share the link for the workshop on the chat box, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Please share your links. Let them register. No problem. And thank you very much for your valuable time, and your presentation was really great. Hopefully, our students got a lot of information about the cost effectiveness and eco materials. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you, madam. Thank you,
nice
madam. I'm just sharing the link on for the workshop.
Yes,
the
sir.
form which I've sent you is the link for the workshop.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to register, you can just register here. And all the proceeds of this fee which we collect is going in for setting up one of the incubation cells at the Hampi Center of Design. That is where we are looking at the fee structure.
Sure, sir.
Yes. Any other questions?
I think there is one more question, two more questions at the last, sir.
Right.
Can you explain? I think.
Okay, right. People often get attracted to shimmery, glittery things. It's easy to convince clients for using clay coconut shell and waste materials. Is it easy to convince clients for using clay coconut shells and waste materials in that house? Yeah, I think it's definitely a journey which we have to do together. I think a lot of people come to us because we do things like this. So it becomes more easier for me to speak about using any of the waste materials. But yeah, it's definitely a tough, I mean, the clients are a tough nut to crack many a time. They come with their own notions because design is something where everybody feels that they've already been a part of it in some part of their life. So yes, would you go into a shopping market and buy a toothpaste without a cover on it? Right. Unfortunately, we don't know.
Hello.
And we see that close to we see close to around 10 lakh covers of your toothpaste. I'm just using one material. Your toothpaste cover, which is a cardboard cover, which has a print on top done out of toxic ink, is used every year, every month, and discarded after 1 minute. Because if you take it out and then remove the toothpaste, and that cover goes into the dustbin. And why would I want to package it to such a level can we get, I mean, I don't know if there are any product designers here. Can we design products? Can we design inks which kind of look at not sending it into a landfill and spoiling the system much longer? If you understand 7,000 tons of waste goes out of Bangalore city alone every day, 7,000 tons. And where does it go? It goes into one of the landfills in a nearby village and spoils their atmosphere. Luckily today, I mean, I have kind of shifted out of Bangalore and moving towards something into a tier 3 city where I find myself a little comfortable. But yesterday when I came back to Bangalore, and this way I'm sitting in my office in Bangalore, it's kind of very suffocating to even drive outside. Just imagine you getting immune to driving in fumes. I don't know, I deviated from that question, but I think it's a valid question. How to incorporate sustainability or biophilic design in small spaces? Sustainability or biophilic design is a thought process, Rashi. I don't think it's anything to do with space. I can design a sustainable or a biophilic pen, which is held in your hand, or I can design a sustainable or a biophilic mall, which can take up few acres of land. Right? It's only a thought process. It has got nothing to do with scale of a project.
Okay, thanks, sir, for your wonderful session and joining us about this beautiful project, what you have done in your career. And it's special thanks for participants who participated, and they were there from starting till end. So once again, thank you all of you, sir. So I'm now ending this session and thanks, sir, for making this session successful and making this very informative, sir. Okay.
Any day, madam. Thank you. Any day I'll be there.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I leave?
Yes, sir.